This video is brought to you by these fantastic sponsors, as well as Mobile Gaming News Network, mobilegamingnews.com, your one-stop shop for all your mobile gaming news, reviews, and information you can use. Head on over and sign up, and if you are inclined to write some articles, go ahead and sign up for that as well. We are always looking for more writers. But with that, let's get into the video.
Welcome to the Infinite Library.
Hey guys, what's up and welcome to the Infinite Library podcast. I am joined with Pachex. Unfortunately today, Snow is feeling a little bit under the weather, so it's just going to be the two of us, but that's okay because there is a ton of stuff to talk about this week. Now, last week, Pavel's a little bit boring. Light week. I actually enjoyed the time off from that, but man, I will tell you what, the patch notes followed up by the dev notes today, there was so much stuff this week. It's actually a little overwhelming how much stuff there really is. It's coming down the pipe. They put some timelines on things, and we'll see if they're able to stick with that. But the first topic today, we're going to be covering the things that happened during the patch notes and the Korean live stream. So one of the big things, first off, is the Valentine's Day event. So it does look like we're going to have two Valentine's Day events. We're going to have the rerun Valentine's Day event, and then the new Valentine's Day event is going to overlap the rerun by a week. Now, the one downside of that, a lot of people are kind of thinking, is that we're not going to have enough time or energy to really farm everything. Now, Pachex, got a question. Got to ask you: do you think they're going to nerf the shop at all, or do you think that we're just going to have two whole shops worth of stuff to farm that 1 week during the overlap?
I don't know, man. Like, I remember the first time Roses May Bloom happened. It was actually one of my favorite events. I liked that they tried something new. I was hoping they would keep trying something new like that, but they kind of. But at the same time, like, the shop was intense. So I feel like they kind of need to do something, otherwise this game's going to turn into Grand Blue Fantasy for a few weeks.
You know, the thing is, though, is the first time around, we really didn't have the units that we have now. Additionally, it's likely that, you know, during part of that time, we're going to probably get a lot more stamina, probably through like a web event or something along those lines. Now, it would be interesting to see if they did actually nerf it. Or the other thing, too, is I can't remember because it's been a long time and I can't really remember what happened last week, but did we have the difficulty levels last time around? I don't think we did, right?
Roses was a weird one. To be honest with you, I don't really remember. I remember I think there were difficulty levels, but I think it was only in like one stage of it. I seem to recall there was like various arching plot lines you could pick based on, you know, some of the choices you make through the story. But then ultimately there was like one big battle one per chapter that I do think.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle this, because the overlapping two really grindy events could lead to some burnout. I know that a lot of people are already being burnt out with, you know, farming gear, stuff like this. So, you know, with that would be, you know, a pretty big oof on their part. But overall, I do think that it is kind of interesting that they are doing the rerun and they're also doing the new event. And this is something that a lot of people have been giving them all a really hard time on, you know, epic rerun, all this other stuff. And I think that this is going to probably be how a lot of the future events are going to go. We'll get a rerun alongside a new event. So that'll be kind of interesting that way. You know, the thing that I would really like, and they did say that they put in the like cut scenes or something, splash scenes in the journal. What I really, really want is for them to just straight up put the side storylines in the journal. I don't understand why that's not a thing. Like, those should just be available. And if it's like an event that they're never going to rerun, you pretty much have people that are just going to miss out on that part of the story. Not that most people read the story, but regardless, That's kind of a big thing, and I would really like to see that, because there's a lot of little nuanced things that were in side stories a really long time ago, and you see something in the story now and you're like, yo, who is this character? And like, someone's like, oh, you don't remember them from that 30-second cameo in the side story for this character like 7 months ago, and you're like, no, actually I don't. So that would be
Xeno
I
and how amazingly threatening Xeno is in terms of power level, apparently in the story.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, he's amazingly powerful in the story, but his power level not so powerful in the game, unfortunately. But
Not so much.
yeah, but the thing is, though, is I hold out hope for Xeno getting the Cirilla treatment in the future with a rerun and exclusive equipment and potentially a rework that is going to make him at least semi-usable. But I won't hold my breath. But I think the big thing that came with the announcement of the second Valentine's Day event was Cerise being on the art, and then later on being confirmed to be part of a Tamron banner. Now, there's going to be, I think it was like 4 banners during the new Valentine's Day event, and every one of them has a rate up on the 5-star that's featured and a 4-star. So it's pretty much confirmed that Cerise is going to be a 4-star character. And that, I mean, I kind of understand that. I actually was surprised that they put out, they were teasing like a new character. I was actually kind of holding my hope in for a limited Valentine's Day character. And I know some people were thinking that it was going to be the skin that was teased for Lidica, but I was like, there's no way. That's just going to be a skin. But that's kind of cool, though, that they are putting in more RBG 4-stars. I really liked it when they put in the 3-stars. Here's hoping, though, that she's not just a very forgettable RBG 4-star like a lot of the other ones that were put in.
Like a certain great chief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who, even after his buff, I really just cannot ever see myself building, just like Red Corvus, because I hate him.
Yeah. No, I mean, even after his buff, which we'll get into later, he's, no, not that great. Not that great. But it is kind of interesting because that then leads to potentially a brand new character, a brand new 5-star following Valentine's Day. Now, during the live stream, they mentioned that both Cerise and Kowarik were the next 2 characters that were going to be released. Now, it's
I should be happy about that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Which means that if Cerise is the 4-star, then it's likely that Kowarik is going to be a 5-star. Now, I think the way that lines up, would he be potentially the new RBG, or would he be the new Moonlight in Mystics? Because we've only got a little bit of time left on ML Tywin until we get the next rerun ML5 alongside of ML Surin, who was also shown during the live stream and looks super weebtacular. I'm actually really, really hyped to get her, but it lends itself to thinking that he's going to be the next Moonlight character, I think.
I think if they went that route, they would have a riot on their hands. Because there are so many people that want Kowarik, and there are not that many people that are willing to wail that hard on Moonlight summons. I have a feeling if they made him, dark or light or whatever, I think they would have a massive community riot on their hands.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but at the same time, I mean, from a business standpoint, that would be a pretty solid move. And the other thing too is, you still have pity, and you have quite a while, because if you think about it, so we'll have the Sirmia banner for a week, we'll have a Lidica banner, then we go into the 4 banners for, I think it was 4 banners for the new Valentine's Day. So that easily puts that into brand new ML5 stars. So I'm actually I'm putting money on Kowarik being a 5-star dark hero.
I don't know, man. Not sure I agree. Wasn't he a fire when he was in the game?
Right, but the thing is, though, is when you get further in the game, he's more of a hybrid now, I guess. They were talking about it in Discord earlier about how...
Yeah, I haven't been through the chapter yet.
Yeah, like some of the stuff that he's using is more dark, but he was fire before. So that kind of leads me to believe that, and not only that, but a lot of the characters that are potentially in game can change. And I don't know if he ever used like very specific fire skills. It's been a while since we fought him. I think the only one that's like set in stone is Straws, who they were like, yeah, this guy's a fire knight. We are going to leak that he's a fire knight, so he's going to be a fire knight. But yeah, so actually, I mean, like the timing on that though really just kind of falls in line with the next brand new ML5 in Mystics, because I mean, we have a pace.
Out of curiosity, though, don't they usually like release male, female, male, female? Because the last new male was ML Time.
Like
the one before that was ML
female, 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 male.
Well, no, I mean ML5, ML5. ML5 they tend to rotate because we had ML Litica and then we had ML Tywin and then
but I mean,
the next one would be a female.
They can go off of the beaten path for that. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to when they release females and males in RBG, so I can't imagine that they realistically have.
Yes, there is. As you say, it's female, female, female for RBG.
Yeah. Female, female, female. People complain about having no husbandos. They put out some ML5 husbandos. People still complain. They put out Pavel. People still complain. So yeah, I can see them making Kowarik a 5. Plus, Kowarik's a very highly sought after unit, so I can see them making him an ML5 just to try to rake in that cash.
We'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of that, the other interesting thing, speaking of MLs, during the live stream, they had mentioned that there were considerations around the potential for people to turn in dupe ML5s for their, like, a pick of an ML5 that they don't have. And at first I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's kind of cool. Like, if I got a dupe of something and I don't want to really imprint it, I could just trade it, 1-to-1 for something else. And then they're like, 3 dupe ML5s for a different ML5. And I'm just thinking in my head, who has just 3 ML5s sitting around that they didn't imprint and they just want to trade? That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think something important about that to remember is, like, that was never officially stated anywhere. Like, I do hear that it was a rumor that was said in the live stream, and I believe them. I believe it was said in the live stream. But at the same time, that's all it was. And they've said similar things in the past. Considering does not mean will do, right?
Right. I mean, the thing is, though, is like, even if it was, let's say, 2 ML5s, I mean, I still feel like that's a lot of ML5s. I can think of two ML5s that if I got dupes of them, which, I'm probably not going to anytime soon, I wouldn't imprint onto anybody else, and that would be Spez and Dark Corvus. And that's only because Dark Corvus is really easy to actually triple S imprint because you only need to use Fire Corvus for him. And Spez, I pulled a bunch of Spezes because he just wanted to get triple S, and then I fed him, a Cez or 2 to finish it out. But like, those are the only ones that I think that I would have that would be available. And even at 2, like, realistically, most people, you're going to want to imprint your character, because even if the team-wide imprint isn't that great, typically the self-imprint is something that your character absolutely needs. So it's like, when they were talking about that and people were like, oh yeah, that's not bad, and I'm like, what? No, nobody's just sitting on 3 ML5s. I mean, somebody somewhere is, that spent way more money than me. But yeah, I just think that, like, if it was that much, people would just be like, well, that's kind of kind of pointless.
It's a little bit like the fake Grand Order pity system, a little bit better than that, but at the same time though, if they implement it for 4 stars as well, that could be nice, because I'll tell you, I've played for quite a long time now. I have most all of the ML 4 stars, but I've never ever gotten a Shadow. And I, in fact, never actually got CDOM until like a month ago.
Yeah, it took me a really long time to get CDOM myself, so that would be pretty good. I have all the 4 stars right now. There's a couple that I do need imprints for, but those are pretty few far between. But that would be kind of nice if I could just kind of hold on to some, and then like maybe a new 4-star comes out and I can just be like, okay, cool, give me this 4-star. But
you want to blow your mind, Shogun?
Yeah.
I have never pulled an Arrowell.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, looking at my journal, it has never been pulled.
Wow. I have pulled quite a few of them, and an absolute metric ton of Gunthers, which we'll get into my favorite part of the dev notes later, concerning Gunther. But the other thing too that we got for the live stream was the confirmation that we're going to be able to turn pet snacks in once they put in the patch to take them basically out of the game. We're going to be able to turn in 3-to-1 pet snacks for adoption tickets. Now you can do that up to 50 times. So if you've got 150 or more pet snacks, you're going to want to hold on to them, just because you're going to be able to get at least 50 adoption tokens out of that. I think afterwards it was like what 10 snacks to friendship points or something like that, or 1 to 100 or something along those lines, but that wasn't really as important as getting those 150 for the 50 pet tickets.
I'll be honest, I've just been using the snacks. I really could care less about the pet tickets. We get plenty via World Bus. If I want to spend millions of gold, there's millions of gold, but I've already got like a perfect pet or two. So
see, for me, a whole lot I need to... yeah, for me, what I do is I just sit on them until like a limited pet or like limited pets come out, like Christmas, and then that's when I will burn through all of my tickets. I think during Christmas I had something like 350 from just buying the weeklies, and then all of the ones that we get through the game itself. Like I've never spent Skystones on pet tickets like at all ever. And so like I'll just sit down and just try to burn through and get the limited pets. So
I don't even really care about pet skins or anything. I just want the functionality, and I've got all the functionality at S except for like 1 or 2 things that I really want. But like even 50 pet tickets isn't going to do that. I'm just going to have to wait till RNG blesses.
Yeah, but that's you, and I want a really cute Snowflake as my main pet. Pachex. There you go. Yeah.
Go for it.
So I mean, I do think that
like farming side stories over and over. What can I say?
Yeah, no, actually, I have been, ever since I was able to turn my B11 team into a 45-second B11 team. That's all I've been doing. That's pretty much where I have lived. I get out, I do the side story just enough to do my daily stuff, and then I go back into B11. But that's because I need all of the counter attack sets that will ever exist. So one of the other things that came out with the patch notes, what's up?
Destruction, you mean, isn't counter and Asymmetric?
No, counter attack Banshee.
It's counter life still. That's right, counter life still destruction.
Yep. But so we got some new exclusive equipment, right? Crisettes doesn't really matter. The big thing is Lil Bets, and I know me and you talked about it. I made a video about it, but the chance to hit on her S3 is going to be huge. And it, like, I had some people tell me, like, some people talk to me and they're like, nah, man, it's not going to make a difference. Like, she doesn't counter anybody anywhere. Maybe in Guild Wars, but in RTA, she's going to get rocked. And I'm like, well, you don't really know that. Cause I mean, I know people that run Spez in RTA for, Spez purposes. And I think that with her S3 and the skill nullifier giving her that extra little bit of survivability after her S3, I think that she might actually do pretty well in RTA, especially if she's like just a really, really heavy damage dealer and has good backup.
I'll say this: I already use Lilibet quite a lot. She is strong, and people that don't know how to use her are severely underestimating a very, very strong hero. Her S2 just like destroys things, and her S3 is strong enough with a soul burn to wipe out any Arbiter Vildred that exists, pretty much every SSB that exists, and that's already. And that's having to run Oath Key because you're scared that Arbiter Vildred might have the Dream Blade. If you don't have to run Oath Key, then you can put things like, well, not an RTA portrait, but the equivalent. You can put damage artifacts and make her do even more,
Right.
and she already does a lot.
Yeah.
And then if you decide you want to run an Oath Key instead, then you can have her crit a fire unit. Like, she's going to be good.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that, a lot of people are going to kind of figure out how to work her into teams. Like, one of the things that I see a lot of people talk about is like, this is the meta for RTA. This will be the meta forever in RTA. And I think that because RTA is just on its second preseason, there's really no big rewards other than the current web event, which I think they're pushing the web event to get more people into RTA so that they can test RTA more and work out any bugs and get more people playing it so that they, because that's at the end of the day, that's really going to be their big focus with when RTA comes out is pushing RTA. So I think that like once there's actually stuff on the line, then more people are going to take it seriously. I think a lot of the people that are going to come up with like big brain, crinkle brain strats are not even playing RTA right now. They're farming gear, and they're going to farm gear until the literal day that RTA goes live, and then they're going to take it seriously, because right now is all the prep time. That's what you need.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing RTA that much right now. What you kind of have to realize about it is right now there is only one reward for RTA, and that is the fun of doing, which is fine and all. And, I enjoy playing RTA from time to time, but the thing is, the people who are playing RTA for fun and only for fun, those are the guys that have all of the ML5 stars. Those are the whales. Those are the ones that like really, really like hardcore PvP. You don't have the casual fans that are just kind of, having general fun in the game. So right now, even in bronze, it's like there's all Arbiter Vildreds, right? But that's not going to be the case forever. Once they actually, like, if there is good enough incentive to get people to playing RTA, then more people will start doing it, and you'll start to see quite a bit more variance, I think.
Well, yeah, no, and I think that, the people who are playing right now are, and playing a lot are, very few and far between when it comes to whales, because like I feel like a lot of the big whales that are trying to get ready, there's nothing really drawing them in, right? Like there's no reason for me to do RTA right now when I could be running Banshee 11, Wyvern 11, A11, G11 to get that gear for when it goes live, and there's actually something on the line. Because if I spent 3 hours a day right now doing RTA instead of farming, when it comes out and I get stomped because I don't have the gear that I need, then was that worth it? You know what I mean? So I think that like once it goes live, that's when you're going to see a lot more like counter picks. You're going to see variants. You're going to see like interesting builds. You're going to see, from me a tanky bruiser Yafine that, and actually like when I have to play my daily RTA, like if a Yafine is picked, I just instantly ban her. Like, I don't care who else is on the team. I'm just like, done. No, I know what you can do.
Finish dealing with that, huh?
Yeah, I did a whole script on you. I am just gonna ban you right now. But yeah, we're gonna see a lot of variants, and I think that the people who are just meta slaves are going to really kind of falter a bit when they're hit with something that's not Rule of Light, Maid Chloe, Fallen Cecilia, Moonlight Ken, Seaside Belle, Charles, Lilius. Like,
I agree.
And they're not going to know how to fight those people.
Again, like I say, once more people start playing RTA, there's going to be less people that have all of those things.
Right.
Like, only a small portion of players actually do have all of those things. even though it feels like more up where we are. But
well, I mean, the higher you get in arena, the more, or in RTA, the more people will have all of those things, obviously. So if you're trying to be, the very best there ever was, then yeah, you're going to have to come up with plans around those. But I do think that a couple of the changes that they're making balance wise are going to be interesting, because like there's some characters that are getting some buffs that are really, really going to help against some of the more meta teams and units and stuff like that. So I think that Lilbet's exclusive equipment is a lot bigger than a lot of people think, because like right now, a lot of times that Hildred on defense really, really relies on that Dream Blade. And if you get the Dream Blade proc, then usually you're boned. So just doing this literally takes that out. Not only that, but if you start running Lilbet, even not against Arbiter Vildred's, like she's really good against Seaside Belle. She'll one shot a Seaside Belle. Guess what? You're not bringing her back with a Maid Chloe. You're not bringing her back with a Rule of Light. I think that a lot of people, like, Extinction was a thing real quick, but then people didn't have enough over damage to kill an Arbiter Vildred even through a Dreamblade proc, so they kind of just let it fall off. Like Spez memes were a really big thing for like a hot second, and then you didn't really see too much about it. So I think that just not only that, but like, Lilbet has elemental advantage against Seaside Belle. She'll be able to take out a Charles. She'll be able to take out some really hefty units. And if you're playing against the tanky bruiser, people, she's going to be able to one-shot an ML Ken. She's probably not going to be able to one-shot a fallen Cecilia through a shield. Maybe. Depends on how you have her built. But I do think that, with that extra chance to hit, it's going to really help out a lot. And Extinction means, guess what? Doesn't matter if you're running Maid Chloe and I counter pick into a Lilbet. I mean, it's gonna be I'm literally taking your Maid Chloe, her whole shtick pretty much like out of the equation.
Two, something you mentioned in your video that I think is important to know that needs to be said again is that, like, actually at the high level, there's already a lot of Arbiter Vildreds running alternative builds, and mostly they run Alexis and aren't running Dreamblade. And the thing is, with Lilibet being a threat and being able to just murder any Arbiter Vildred, like, you aren't going to be able to protect against this.
Yeah.
Basically, I think you're going to see a lot more people gravitating toward the alternative build that uses the basket. And if you see that, then all of a sudden Arbiter Vildred starts being weak to things that he was weak to initially when he first came out. Things like Biken, things like, Judge Kisei, the two-turners.
Yeah.
And so I think you are probably going to see a shift just because if you put him on Dreamblade, they can just bring a little bit and kill him.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got so many people who do two turns. Now, one of the big things about a lot of those characters, though, was that the second turn had to happen on a crit. So again, if you had the Dreamblade, chances are if you missed with a Biken, guess what? Your whole strat was boned right there. So yeah, like when you see the basket, when you start seeing these arbiters drop that Moonlight Dreamblade because their defense isn't winning nearly as much as it used to be, that's going to make him way less of a threat. It's actually like just a kind of a low-key direct nerf to Arbiter Vildred. So yeah.
It absolutely is. It's no accident that her exclusive equipment gives her the same amount as an Oath Key.
Right.
Or the same amount as Dreamblade does, I mean.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Because, and this way too, I was actually really surprised they didn't put out a Lilbet banner. Like, I'm surprised that like she's not somewhere in like the Valentine's Day banners.
That's going to be after the Arbiter Vildred banner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it'll have to be, everybody will get Arbiter Vildred and people will be sleeping on Lilbet for a hot minute until they see everybody else rocking her, and then they'll pick it up after the next banner. But I do think that she's going to be a very big impact with the way that the game goes. Now, one of the other things that was in the patch notes was the growth pack, and I don't know how I feel about this, right? So when you pull a 5-star for, what was it, 24 hours, I think, you get a chance to buy a growth pack. And what this gives you, 6 hours after a player has acquired a 5-star hero. So in this, you get 150k gold, 45 runes of your choice element, one element, 22 greater runes, and 8 epic runes, all of your own choice. And then you get 15 rare catalysts of one type, and then you get 5 3-star penguins, one per element. So this is actually only, I think, what was it, $10, which I feel like isn't too bad. Like $10 for 15 rare catalysts by itself, at least in my opinion, is not really all that bad. And you can get these 3 times a month, up to 3 times a month. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? I've had a lot of people go, oh man, this is so pay to win. This is so pay to win. But yeah, what are your opinions on that?
Well, I don't know that I'd call it pay to win, because I mean it is limited to 3 a month, and all it is just essentially you make the 6-star and then you get to level it up to 6. That's far from winning in this game. In fact, that's the start of where winning begins. At the same time, I don't think I'd ever buy it. Like, I don't know. I think the leveling process and the farming of catalysts and things like that is kind of most of the game. So I think they're trying to appeal to people who, don't have a lot of time to play, and maybe you're just like stressed out as to how slow they're progressing or something. But I mean, honestly, more power to them. I'll never buy it, but it is what it is.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I feel like I might potentially buy like 1 or 2 of them just to see how I feel about it. And I do know that, like, farming the catalysts and stuff like that is a big part of the game. And it's going to be a lot easier once, you can run 20 times on your pet before you have to jump back in there. But I do feel like it does save you a lot of stamina that you would have had to have in order to get those 15 rare catalysts. So I think, like, at the end of the day, I wonder if somebody's done the math over on Reddit on how much
the catalyst do seem like a little bit of overkill, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like 15k, that's less than $1 per rare catalyst. And I mean, depending on how much stamina you equate that to, like, typically when I look at it, I go, I don't ever expect a rare catalyst. I just kind of look at the side story and go, okay, how many runs would I have to do to get the AP to get this rare catalyst? And that's kind of how I judge the value of a rare catalyst in my head. So, at less than $1 per rare catalyst, I mean, you're not going to be, getting those rare catalysts in that amount of stamina. So I think, like,
well, actually, there is a technique called sliming, where there's a certain map you go to and you kill 3 slimes within about an instant, and it takes like 2 stamina, and like drops the slime things very, very commonly, and then you just convert it into the catalyst you want. So that exists, and it is for like dirt cheap in terms of catalysts, or in terms of stamina. So, like, the only thing is that one's like very, very mind numbing.
Yeah, I can see that being very ridiculously mind numbing. But I mean, that is a good point. So I mean, I guess it really depends. It does save you time. It does save you stamina that you could be using for other things. So it's interesting. I don't think, like you said, I don't think it's really pay to win. I do think that it is kind of more geared towards the people that are just like, man, I just don't have the time to farm this. Like, I need to, let me just level this up so that I can just gear it out and start actually playing the game.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty on the fence about it. I think there's many, many worse things they've put out in the past, like Mystic Packs. I mean, equipment packs actually still kind of rub me the wrong way.
See, you know what? Now that now that I'm farming so much, equipment packs in my head are actually super not that bad. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be RNG, and I've never pulled a decent item out of equipment packs. But speeding up your overall equipment in favor of you get what 10 pieces of gear in place of 70 bookmarks. Like I'm at the point right now where getting more bookmarks isn't really going to do much for my account.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like I just don't like the concept of the pack, but they
Yeah.
are actually probably a pretty good deal for the individual.
Yeah, and I think though the thing that I kind of like about all the packs in general is that, you know, it's basically, hey, buy 3,000 Skystones and get one of whatever it is that you need. You need gear? Here's some gear. It's not going to be very good, but here's your RNG gear. You need some gold? Here's some gold. You know, so that's kind of I kind of like how they do that, because like, you know, yeah, maybe I don't necessarily need bookmarks because I can just sit on bookmarks for a while until I feel like, you know, doing random covenant summons at, you know, 2 a.m. and seeing what I can pull and then continuing to go over and over and over again till I, you know, just, yeah. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. So I do think that the more I farm and stuff like that, the more that equipment packs don't seem like the worst deal, because I mean I'd rather burn through a little bit of extra luck hoping that I get something good out of there, because it's not going to come out of Hell Raid and it's probably not going to come out of farming. So yeah, but
I'm telling you, Matt, like the world boss is my new religion. That's where I get all of my gear lately.
man, I wish I were in the same boat as you. Unfortunately all the gear I get out of world boss, not that amazing. I actually get more catalysts out of world boss than like anything else. Like it's ridiculous how many like catalysts, rare and epic catalysts I get out of there. Like I got 2 epic catalysts today. Just
Jeez.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But so let's hop into talking about the balance patch and the dev notes that came out with the Charlotte rework. So they actually, there were a lot of really surprise characters in this that I didn't really expect them to address. Like I didn't expect them to hit Tenebria again, because I mean they've buffed her time and time again trying to make her a thing, and I don't know that even with this current buff that she's going to be a thing. Now Shadow Tenebria, Spectre Tenebria is going to be a thing for sure, because she got an amazing buff out of this, but like regular Tenebria, like Smilegate, chill. Like you're going to have to, she's going to be kind of hard to work on. But I think that
Fire Ginebra at this point, I think they just need to switch concepts, because I don't think this buff is going to do anything for her she didn't already do.
Right. So, you know, that's kind of the big thing with that. But like Melissa got a really decent buff. I really liked her buff. Cecilia got a pretty good one. So let's talk about Melissa's. Now they made it so that her if she kills somebody with her S2, it cools down the skill. And so like theoretically, if you're just killing things over and over and over again, like you have infinite immortality, which really ramps up her survivability, because right now she's very squishy, and if she didn't have that immortality on her S2, she would just kind of poof. Like
no, if I'm understanding this correctly, like you use the S3 and then she'll get an extra turn and she'll go into the S2, and if the S2 kills someone, then the S2 resets over and over again, not the S3.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that could be potentially really strong. It's like a K run that you just can't get the immortal off of. You'd have to cleanse it, or you'd have to dispel.
Right. Now, the other thing, speaking of dispelling, is, and I feel like this is like just a Band-Aid that they put on characters when they're like, hey, we need to fix this character. What are we gonna do? I don't know, man. Just make their S3 dispel all buffs from the enemy before attacking. Now, I get that they needed to do that because the way she works, like with her curse and everything, she kind of required that in order to put the curse on, because if they had debuff immunity, well, you just kind of couldn't do anything and it was kind of useless. So I do think that that was a pretty decent one. So this makes it so that whoever your target is, it doesn't matter. Their buffs are gone and now they've got curse. And now you're going to follow up with an S2 either on them or on somebody else. And then you're going to start making that, you're going to start that engine up that's just going to be churning out, unlimited S2 works.
Yeah, I think Melissa in general, she's kind of got what I like to call the biking treat. And that's that, like, basically when she first came out, everybody's like, oh, she's just absolute garbage. Like, totally terrible. Like, I remember Reddit thread after Reddit thread after Reddit thread telling me how bad biking was. Eventually, I ignored them and built her anyway, and she was like the best hero I've ever built. Like, catapulted my account in terms of progression. And I feel like Melissa is a little bit of the same way. I feel like since she's come out, there have been quite a few people that have learned how to use her, and she's definitely not as bad as was initially expected. But I do think this is going to make her stronger, and so those people are about to get rewarded.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then you're going to get people that were like, oh, Melissa's garbage. Now all of a sudden they're going to be the A-Ravi crowd that are going to be like, oh man, this character's so overpowered. I just can't kill her. And she just like dunks on everything and I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be like, well, you got what you wanted, man. Now you're getting wrecked by the very thing that you were scorning before. And I think that it's actually like poetic justice every time I see somebody complain now about how overpowered A-Ravi is when they really didn't do that much to her. But like this really...
They just made her easier to gear. That's all it did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but this like really, really boosts up Melissa's damage output and survivability on this. So I really do dig this, and I think that it's going to go a long way to help her out because I mean she's got elemental advantage on her S3. If it crits, she gets a second turn. As she puts curse on people, so damage is shared. It's really just kind of great. Her kit is really good. I think that the survivability thing was a lot of people's problem because after the immortality was gone, she just kind of died, kind of like a K-Ron that's stunned, so it'll be interesting to see if this really does like make a big difference in her usability and like viability in arena, stuff like that. So I do think though that was a pretty decent buff for her. Now speaking of decent buffs, now Fire Cecilia, I think she got a pretty good one. They took away the weird under 50% chance thing on her Steel Cloudburst, so now it's just straight up 85 to 100% chance to decrease attack for 2 turns. Now, one thing that I try to get across to people a lot is the fact that like defense up and attack down are really, really huge. And I do think that like the vast majority of people that play this game don't know what any of the buffs do, because I don't ever really see people like talk or like really say anything about like defense up or attack down, because I know you get hit with an attack down and your DPSer gets hit with it, and guess what? They're not doing like any DPS anymore. It's pretty big, and if you put both of those together, then you just kind of completely neuter the other team's damage.
Yeah, and I think like Cecilia has been a character I've actually got her built. I'm kind of messing around with her and testing her. And she's been a hero that I've really wanted to like for a long time. And then that skin came out, and I was like, okay, now we are building her. But no, I think she's always been really interesting, but she's just got some weaknesses. And I don't know. I'd like reading this buff. It sounds pretty good. I think it may address a few of them. I think the big game changer though, the defense up and attack down certainly. But the before granting immunity to all allies for 2 turns and a barrier to caster, that's going to be interesting too, because now you have a fire tank that can provoke, that can do defense up, that can do attack down, and she can give immunity, and that's a pretty big deal.
No, she doesn't do defense up. She does shield on her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, she does the shield. But yeah, no, the immunity for 2 turns after a huge taunt. Now I've actually went up against it was a Bassar, Fire Cecilia, and something else. Or no, it wasn't a Bassar. It was a Captain Ricorous who just came in, debuffed me, or stripped all my buffs, and then this really super fast Cecilia just S3'd and like taunted everybody. And I was just like, what is even going on? And then their team proceeded to just stomp all over me. It was very interesting, and I actually really like those.
I've had that happen before. Like every now and then, like Goddess Cecilia descends, and it's like, how did you build this?
Right. And so now being able to give people immunity for 2 turns as well is pretty solid. So let's say you do get your immunity stripped by a faithless Lidica or something along those lines, and they don't put an unbuffable up. Well, guess what? She can just come back through, taunt everybody, and then now your debuff immunity is back on. So realistically, like personally, I like running multiple people they can put immunity on, because there's always going to be a lag time in between them being up. So if you're in it for like the long fight, then there's going to be a time where those drop off, and so having somebody else who can kind of put that on in the interim before the other one is up, and you just rotate them back and forth, is really good. Or if you are afraid of like somebody stripping your immunity, and then it's like, oh, well, I've got to wait 5 turns or whatever before we can put this back up, then this can be that. So she can just be like, boom, taunt everybody, and then just drop immunity on stuff, and then gives herself a pretty decent sized barrier. So I think that is going to be pretty decent, and I can see
it's going to be very interesting. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy messing around with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because they're buffing these fire characters, right? But if you listen to literally anybody on the internet, we are in the era of the water meta still, which is not really, it's a seaside, it's just Seaside Belle. I don't,
every time the water meta has not been a thing in forever. Like, this meta is not the water meta. This meta is the RNG counterattack meta. That's what this meta is.
Yeah, and so anytime somebody's like, oh, the water meta, and I'm like, okay, who do you see from water other than Seaside Belle? Sometimes you'll see a DN. That's about it.
In the end, like, I don't see much.
Yeah, no, I don't even really see Amont ran that much anymore. I used to see Amonts all day, all night, and now I just hardly ever see them. I ever do
Crow.
Oh yeah, Crow. I see Crow every once in a while.
Sometimes.
And like really speedy Crows, I just hate them, because you deal a bunch of damage to them, and then they kill somebody, and then by the time you can burn them down again, they've got their freaking S3 back up, and they just burn through somebody else, and you're just like, oh, and then you kill them, and then they Noble Oath back up, which they made Noble Oath even better, and we'll get into that. But
Holy Sacrifice, you mean?
Or Holy Sacrifice, my bad. But I'm not even going to talk about Fire Tenebria. We're talking about the better Tenebria, Spectre Tenebria. And the big thing here is her Poison Blast. When Endless Nightmare is on cooldown, it can't be the skill can't be counterattacked. Actually, it can't be counterattacked in general. But when Endless Nightmare is on cooldown, this attacks 2 enemies instead of 1. So that doubles her DPS on that when Endless Nightmare is on cooldown, and cannot trigger a counterattack. Now that's going to be really bad against my teams, because I just put counterattack on everybody and let RNGesus take the wheel. So that's going to be a little bit sad if I ever go up against one of those. But I think that they're really kind of thinking about things in the way of like, there are a lot of counterattack characters. Charles, usually a fallen Cecilia. People are running, ritual swords, counterattack sets. You've got ML Ken, all of these things. And that's why Faithless Lydica's S2 was so good, because it stripped, it did AoE damage, and you couldn't counter it. So I think that this is really big, and it'll be interesting to see if they start doing this for more characters in the game, where it's just like, hey, you can't counterattack this character, so you got to think of something else besides just Elbrus Ritual Sword counterattack Charles.
I gotta tell you, like, when I first read these notes on Spectre Tenebria, I just like busted out laughing for about a minute, because I have a plus 15 Spectre Tenebria. I actually rolled an Arbiter Hildred like the day before his nerf, and I traded Arbiter Hildred for Spectre Tenebria just because waifu first, man. But yeah, this is incredible. Like, she's going to be a massive threat. Anyone who doesn't have her and isn't familiar with what she does, get ready, because on offense, at least, she's going to be ruining your day if you've got a counterattack team. Yeah, this is a very, very big buff. Like, this kind of reminds me of when they put out the Assassin Cully buff, and it was like, but Assassin Cully was already really good, and then she got even better. And yeah, that's what's happening here.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why some of the times when they start like buffing certain characters, I'm like, wait, but that character was always already really good. Like, you just took a really good character and turned them into an absolutely, amazing character. So
I will say, I think it makes perfect sense with her theme, though. Like, it's odd that she's supposed to be like this specter that you cannot attack unless you have AoE, but yet, like, people just counter her.
Yeah, for sure. So so no, I think that she got a pretty decent buff on that.
Now, I would just like to point out something, Shogun. She's a mage, right? She can hold book.
Yep.
And Oxlots can hold book, and Cdom can hold book. And like, you could put someone else, I guess, if you wanted to hold book, maybe Bassar, I don't know. But like, her S1, you can soul burn and go again, and soul burn and go again, and soul burn and go again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can do that.
So fast Oxlots, 4 book holders, and done. Yeah. Now, would you want to run, because you would want to push for Oxlots, put Endless Nightmare down or on cooldown, and then push again, and then do that. So you would want to run.
Yeah. So it'd probably be better with like 3 books.
Yeah. So Oxlots and regular lots.
There you go.
Oxlots into Endless Nightmare, and then you just lots turn, and then you're hitting 2 people. They can't counterattack, and then they're just dead.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's gonna be pretty ridiculous. I expect you to try that team out for sure.
I don't have that many books, but I will work toward it.
Work towards that many books. I'm
working on my 3rd book.
Yeah. No, I did 3rd. I haven't put together a 4th one, but I might just to do memes. But I do have 4 Elbrus Ritual Swords, so I guess that team's gonna completely bone my team. But yeah, moving on. So Blue Rose, actually, I thought was perfectly another character that was pretty much fine. I've used her as a CR pusher and attack buffer in the past. I ran her with DJ Bassar, so she would be right behind. DJ Bassar would push forward, she would push forward even further, and then I would have attack up on two heavy slow cleavers, and pretty much with the 2 with 30% and 25% CR push, they were going to go. So that was usually how that went. But now they have made it so that it increases her defense for 2 turns, because they were worried about her survivability. So this is going to increase her survivability. And then they changed her S2, which is the combat readiness push plus barrier and removes debuffs. They made it so that it scales better off of her defense. So this is going to give her a lot more survivability, as well as other people in the group that, in your group, that you're going to want to like, oh, I need to either push this character forward a little bit, remove some debuffs, or put a shield on them. So I think that this is really good. And I've always thought that Rose was a bit of a sleeper character anyways.
Yeah, I think honestly, I feel like this one's a bit more targeted for PvE use. I really feel like her PvP issues were already solved when they gave her the speed for the exclusive equipment, and
Yeah.
the one that basically makes her S2 apply. But I mean, yeah, she's going to be a little chunkier. I feel like though that like as you say in PvP, she's usually used as a CR pusher, and then like turn one the game's over. So I think
Yep.
it's probably more like a PvE oriented targeting.
Yeah, no, totally feel that. So moving on to the next one was Clarissa, and this was actually a really big surprise to me because like I don't ever really hear anybody talk about Clarissa. It completely like kind of slipped my mind. The only time I tell people really to level Clarissa is if they don't have a well, I told them before to level her as a farmer, but that was until Lena came out, and now it's like, bro, if you've got Lena, level her because she is the best dog walker in the game. But it's pretty cool because, well, and first off, like you can't dispel rage anymore, and I think that should have never have been able to be dispelled because I mean that's kind of one of her core mechanics. It was kind of like Corvus's fire Corvus's thing, or like Fire Ken's buff. It'd be like being able to remove Tamarin's idol form, because it's technically a buff. So that kind of sucked for her. But the nice thing is, so previously, in order to put bleeds on with her S3, the AoE one, you had to be enraged. But now they took that out completely. So you're going to be able to inflict 2 bleeds for 2 turns, and you have a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. So I think that this was more geared towards potentially like PvP because defense break and the guaranteed bleed effects. Now, I would absolutely love, one of the things I would say is I'd love to see bleed make it into PvP, but with so many cleanses, debuff immunity, it's just so unrealistic to have a bleed team. Although there's a lot of buff strippers, so somebody somewhere might come up with some sort of crazy haste anti debuff bleed team.
Yeah, I don't know. Really, the only viable bleed I've seen in PvP so far has been Viking, and that's because she just detonates. Like she applies
Right.
it and then detonates, so it's done. But yeah, I don't know. Clarissa is one of those that actually, like, she was one of the first heroes I built. I did use her as a farmer for quite a long time, and then I also used her for Wyvern as my initial defense breaker when I was getting the Wyvern 11 team down. But I just feel
Yep.
like there's so many more better options for that now.
Right.
I do think like Furious, for one thing, is a better option than that. But I feel like it's a good buff. It's going to help her out. Rage not being dispelled is a big deal because that's, as you say, like she's getting mad. How are you just going to stop her from getting mad?
Like, hey, calm down.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that both of her skills have a 50% chance to decrease defense now. Because like when I ran her in Wyvern, what people would do is we just turn off all of her skills and she just S1s over and over and over trying to get the defense break. Well, now you don't have to do that. She can do some extra damage with her S2 as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
It is. It's not the biggest. It's not the biggest buff, but at the same time, it's nice. It'll help out people that maybe they don't have these other characters. Maybe they just want to level the crazy nun. So that's pretty nice. So
she used to be a cleaver too, like back when Arena was such that she could be a cleaver.
Absolutely. I'm not going to talk about Fire Ricardo because there's nothing that they could do to make him that much better because he's going to be overshadowed by the next one, Fighter Maya. Now,
I'm excited for this one, Shogun.
Now, I have used Fighter Maya quite a bit in Guild Wars and even in Arena. If there is an Assassin Kali on the opposing team, if there's an Assassin Kali or there's an A-Ravi or anything like that I know this character is going to attack my Fighter Maya, I just pop Fighter Maya. And now I've always built my Fighter Maya really heavy defense, really heavy crit damage, because I always felt like she needed to be a threat. I wanted people to, and she ran Elbrus Ritual Sword counterattack set, so you're damned if you do, damned if you don't on that one. And I wanted her to hit people and hit them really, really hard so that they were like, wait, hold on, what just happened here? Because when she has her defense up buff from her S2 stripping things, she hits like a truck already. And
yeah, she does.
The thing is, you could, if they weren't running counter Elbrus, like, and it was in a maxed Elbrus, like, you could work around ignoring her and leaving her till the end, and then just kind of slowly working her down, because she's, you know, she's got so much defense, she might as well be a world boss, not the real world boss, but, or not the world boss currently, but like a real one that takes a while. And so the thing is that I think now the increase to 75% on her provoke, which was already 50%, which is, you know, half the time, because that's literally what 50% is. Now you have 75% chance, and if you soul burn this now, you have 100% chance to provoke. So if you've got somebody eyeballing down a character that, you know, that might die, you can just be like, boom, provoked, done. You're going to have to attack me. I'm going to tank it, and then I'm going to counterattack and hit you in your face. The other thing, too, is if you're Elbrus Ritual Sword countering, boom, provoked. Let's say you need to stall a character out for a turn, boom, provoked. And at 10 souls, that's actually really not that unrealistic. It's actually pretty cheap when compared to like some soul burning abilities. But the big thing is since they put the soul burn on the S1, they took it off of the S3. Now this is her home run hit, and you know, it does 300% damage when the health is less than 30%. You know, and it scales off of defense. Now they put onto it that this grants the caster an extra turn when the enemy's defeated. Now previously you could soul burn this to increase the damage dealt. So what they did was they just took and they made her S3 do the same amount of damage as the soul burn all the time. Just all the time. It's permanently soul burned. And if you are less than 30% now, there's almost nobody that she can't kill. Like if you're under 30%, you're just dead.
Well, I mean, that kind of always was the case, though. But so here's my interesting thing about Fighter Maya, and I've used Fighter Maya for a very, very long time. And anytime anyone asks me, you know, if they should build her or not, I always say yes, and I say yes for a few reasons. Number one is, as you say, she takes a lot of defense gear. You don't really want that for a lot of other heroes, so she uses gear that other heroes don't use. That's awesome. She's really, really good at, you know, being a bait for some of the dark heroes. I've actually had mine go one-on-one with an ML Cannon win. And that was, you know, obviously pre-buff. Like you've discussed the provoke chance stuff really, really well. I think that's going to be huge for her. But here's the thing with her S3. Below 30%, nothing survived a soul burn F Maya, period, ever. But it's also split into multiple hits, right? She whaps them, and then she like golf clubs them, and then there's like one more tick when they fly into the air. And the interesting thing about her S3 is even if they aren't below 30%, when you first hit them, if one of those hits takes them below 30%, then the extra damage applies to the rest of it, is how I've noticed that to work. So okay. I've actually, with Fighter Maya before, just because she has defense buff and like incredibly high defense, and her damage scales on defense, I've actually used S3 on a squishy that was not below 30%. Like they were at like 50 or 60%, and I've still killed them. And you're going to be able to do that with this easier now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not only that, I mean, even if you're hitting somebody, you know, maybe they're tanky, you're still going to be doing a ton of damage. Like, you don't necessarily have to trigger the extra 300%. Like, just the soul burned damage alone is going to be, it's going to be pretty big, because I used her just earlier in Guild Wars, and, you know, I went in on somebody who was like 50%. Now, I didn't kill them because, well, it was an A-Ravi, but I mean, it took her down to pretty much a sliver of health, and then I followed up right after with somebody else. So, I mean, it's still, that wasn't even soul burned. So now, once the change happens, that's easily going to just do some serious business damage. And I think that this is going to make her a really big threat that can't be debuffed, is going to, take a ton of defense gear that you've just got laying around. Maybe get perfect substats on like a counterattack piece, but it's got percent defense main, and you're like, yeah, I don't know who I would use this on. Guess what, Fighter Maya?
Fighter Maya.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we forgot to mention too is when she kills someone with the S3 now, she's going to get an extra turn. So you can literally like take out a squishy and then just provoke the next threat.
Yep. Absolutely. I think
great.
that you're going to see a big resurgence of her because I'm going to run her a lot.
Yep, me too. It's a good change.
Again,
she's another one of those that like she had her niche. I'm not 100% sure she needed this.
Yeah.
But I will take it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I had some Molagoras sitting around, so I went and finished out her S3 earlier. So
that was actually the other thing I meant to mention is there was really no reason to do that before because anything that hit 30% was going to die before it. But now that you can just like straight up possibly kill squishies without even being there,
right,
a lot more often, then yeah, it's going to be worth putting that extra damage on the S3.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's literally soul burned damage constantly. So that's really huge. So yeah, I finished that out, and I'm sure that the provoke chance, I think the provoke chance is flat on that. I don't think it actually goes up with the skill up, but
I don't remember, but if it does, you should get it.
yeah, if it does, yeah, 100%. I don't think it does because otherwise it would have said like 50% for 35 to 50%. So it's probably flat and it just does more damage. But I mean, I'm probably going to finish it out anyways, just so that she does more damage. Because like I said, mine right now, and I haven't even like optimized her gear that well. I got a couple pieces that I could, swap out for something else. I got a couple defensive pieces recently that I need to level up, but once I have her stuff like optimized, she's gonna be hitting even harder. And like earlier, I went in on an Arbiter Hildred and I took out a good 30% of his hit points on my S1 that was completely unskilled up. Yep. So it's just, you're just going to counterattack and just like straight dunk things in the face, like, and then taunt it. And I am super, super excited for that.
Again, too, like you mentioned before, not a lot of people really realize the impact of defense, but like defense. So there's multiple ways to build Fighter Maya. I prefer the build that you do with the counterattack Elbrus. Mm-hmm. But before I had that counterattack gear, something I actually did with her is I put Noble Oath on her, which, like, her defense scales up as her health goes and such. Mm-hmm. And that plus defense buff, plus she's already running, like, over 2k defense easily. And, like, she hit a lot. Or, like, she hurt a lot when she hit things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And it's just gonna get better from here. And she's gonna take no damage. So it's gonna be really, really solid. But moving on, because I could probably talk for another 20 minutes about how much I love Fighter Maya, and plus gravity defying chocolate boobs. That's realistically the reason why you should level her in the first place. But Celestial Mercedes, I do like that they moved the soul burn from the S3 to the S2, because as they kind of mentioned in here, you didn't really want the soul burn to reduce your cooldowns on the S3 because, well, you didn't want to S2 and then soul burn S3, and it kind of was a little on the wonky side on that. But I think moving it to the S2 really does kind of set up that I'm going to S3 things. I'm going to get that combat readiness. Maybe I have, a character in between there somewhere that'll push me even further forward. Then you soul burn the S2 to get the cooldowns, and then you S2, and then you can follow up later on, with an S3 again quicker. So I think that moving that was a good idea. I was kind of expecting a little bit more, but at the same time, like, my Celestial Mercedes just wipes things off of the face of the earth. So I don't know what else they would have done besides that.
Yeah, Celestial Mercedes actually, I believe, was my first plus 15. She might have been my second. But I've used her for a really long time too. And, like, this makes sense as far as making her kit flow. Again, though, kind of like you say, I don't know that it's going to change anything as far as like arena usage or guild wars or anything, because she's a cleaver, right? Like
Yep.
after turn 1, like she does her S3, she does her S2, and either they're dead or you're dead.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. So I do think that maybe I think it was maybe more geared towards using her in PvE on,
And it'll definitely help with that.
Yeah, so I mean, like once they've the other thing that I forgot to mention during the live stream is they mentioned that new Abyss levels are coming, which is super hype for me. So this could help out in future Abyss levels, things like
before
that,
the original
where you're
tower
trying
bosses
to
come back.
Yeah, so I think that was just a good move on their part. Now the next character that I think is kind of interesting, and one that literally nobody even knows what she does, is Doris. And I like Doris. I like her aesthetically because she's one of those like nice little cute like cleric nerds that's like, prim and proper in the streets and probably a Clarissa in the sheets. But I've always like kind of liked what she did, because she puts up like the heal over time, and then if you have continuous healing, you get even more healing on her S3. So it was really good to actually pair her up with a regular Watts, because you always had continuous healing going. So she would just heal for just this massive amount of damage, and I believe that she healed for 25% of their max health, and it was doubled if they had continuous healing on. Not only that, but it increased their combat readiness by 30%, which is already pretty big. So what they did was they took out the requirement for continuous healing and then just made it base. So this is really big, because her Light's Curtain not only will heal for 50% of an ally's max health without any conditions, but it'll also give them 30% combat readiness, which is really a lot of HP heal and quite a bit of combat readiness on this skill, which I think is really interesting.
This skill is?
I will look it up real quick. Give me 1 second, because I mean, Doris, who has, I mean, I actually think I have her 5-starred and ready to be 6-starred, but it is 3 turns.
It's like 3 turns. Wow.
It is a 3-turn.
This is actually
cooldown.
kind of interesting, because I remember when I first started the game, and like watching all the YouTubers that I'm not gonna name names, but they were around. And like we used to do community summons and stuff, and I used to see people like they'd do somebody's ML summon, it'd be Doris, and be like, oh, that's not bad. Doris is pretty good. Oh, that's not bad. Doris is pretty good. But I never actually like saw any of them actually build Doris. I think she was one of those heroes that people were like, yeah, she's not bad, but nobody actually built.
Dude, okay, so hold on.
3 turns, like that's a lot of HP every 3 turns.
Right, and her S2 on a 4-turn cooldown gives everybody in the group continuous healing and increased defense for 2 turns.
Jeez, continuous healing is strong too.
Not only that, but then you literally have the S3 that's going to come through. You can either use it to strategically push somebody forward, or you literally heal 50% hit points. And if you're hitting like a Lilius or anybody really tanky, that's going to be huge. And like on a 3-turn cooldown, if you build her just like really fast, really tanky, like let's say you build her like an Amont, you're going to have continuous healing on everybody. You're going to have defense up, and you're going to be healing for 50% and pushing every 3 turns. Now, let's say you put a Memorandum or a Magdaraz on her, that's going to be ridiculous.
I just had an evil thought.
What's that?
You put Water's Origin on Doris, and you run her with a Momo.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
That's gonna be would be the most cancerous defense.
Like that is so much health.
The only way you would be able to beat that would be with a Yafine.
Yep.
And you would just have to kill one and then wait and then kill the other one. And what
Like
you
that
do,
could honestly be possibly like a good Dark Corvus support or something in Guild Wars, just because like
ooh, yeah,
the enemy wouldn't on offense because the enemy would not be able to out heal. Like as long as you could sustain your whatever DPS you brought, you win.
right.
And I don't think any enemy combination in Guild Wars is going to be able to out sustain that.
No, no, not at all. No, that's actually a really good idea. I'm gonna need to go find out what level where my Doris is at. She might be. I have more than enough dogs to 6-star. If she's in the 5, I'm gonna 6-star Doris, and we're gonna see how Doris runs.
Well, she's a 3-star too, so you can plus 15
So I can
her
plus
without Molus.
15 her immediately. Dude, I think that is a huge change. Put her at like 210 speed with like a decent amount of hit points and effect resist, like literally build her like an Amont, and like you know, like you said, continuous healing, defense,
And Momo does
continuously
continuous
pushing.
healing too. So
Yeah,
like
she does
someone's gonna have
continuing,
it up front.
and continuous healing. Actually, I found out stacks, so you can have multiple stacks of continuous healing on a
Jeez.
character at any given time. So hell, you could run them with a Ruzid and or a regular Lots, and just everybody has like 15 stacks of continuous healing on. It would be stupid.
I'm definitely gonna have to mess around with Doris.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of people are going to look at these changes and be like, this doesn't, what is this? Who cares about Doris? But they're not thinking, yeah. So since 50% of max health is a notable amount of healing among soul weavers, we hope that the heirs can use Doris effectively in several situations. 100%. 100%. The Requiem Roar, speaking of 3-stars, the Requiem Roar increase was very marginal, but I do kind of like it. So if an enemy dies, all allies recover 20% health, and Requiem Roar gets 10% increased combat readiness. So this is going to be better, I think, for like farming, or like raids or something like that. I can't see this being that good in PvP. Now, if they ever open up like a 3-star only RTA option, then
Which they should. That would be fun.
I've heard that the other game that is very similar to this has that. So if it does, that's literally where I'm going to live. I'm going to live in that version because I love 3-stars. But it's a nice change. I don't think that it's going to like make her appear too much on like any arena teams or anything like that. But again, like I said, we'll see what some of these like Senku level players, the real Senkus, do once RTA comes out. But with characters, they usually buff artifacts as well. And we were talking about Crow earlier with Holy Sacrifice, and so Holy Sacrifice was already pretty okay. The only thing you had to kind of think about was like if you could just kill them and then do 25% of their hit points immediately afterwards before the Crow would just kill one of your characters. But they thought that that this was not good enough, so now the character gets a barrier for 1 turn that is proportional to the caster's max health. So after they come back, they're not going to die until they get like another turn. And that's like their plan. So like if you're going to kill somebody and then hope to kill them again, like you got to like set that up to do like some serious damage, or you would need to have a buff stripper come right afterwards to pull that shield off.
So question though, did Crow not already come back with a barrier?
No.
Not. Okay.
No.
Well, either way, I mean, he's getting the horse off, but like, I don't know.
Right.
I feel like the intention here isn't necessarily to make it any better on Crow, because it's not like you can still deal with Crow after his barrier, because after he's done the horse, he's got several turns before he can horse again.
Yeah.
But I think the intention here is to make it usable on knights beyond Crow, and I'm trying to think who would I still use it on. I don't know. I'm not that creative with artifacts, though. Maybe
I
somebody
don't,
out there will.
yeah, I don't typically use Holy Sacrifice anyways, so I'm not too
Because like you're
keen on
sacrificing
it.
like Aureus, you're sacrificing like Elbrus, you're
Right.
sacrificing stuff like that to put this on them, and I'm like, I don't know who I'd do it on.
Also, I just 6-starred my Doris.
Nice.
Although her speed is abysmal. Her base speed is 86. That's super
Well, I
slow.
mean, it's about Angelica speed, right?
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, a Holy Sacrifice, it's good that they're, adding like a little bit extra to it. Krau's really the only person I've ever seen it ran on because, like you said, you're sacrificing Arius, you're sacrificing Elbrus Ritual Sword, you're sacrificing, Adamant Shield if you need to run that for whatever reason. You're sacrificing a lot of other things to get that off, and I feel like it's a very gimmicky artifact that you just mostly use on Crow. But the next one is really, really big, and this is one that I really like, and that's the Shamadra staff in buff. Now, Shamadra staff I already kind of liked in general because it just increased overall healing. So like I've ran Shamadra staff on my DJ Basar to increase his overall healing. I've also ran Celestine on him. I actually, once I max out my Shamadra staff, because that's something that I'm working on right now, I'm actually probably just going to straight run him with Shamadra staff. But now it's going to increase the effect resist of all allies by 20% on top of increasing the healing by 20 to 40%. So this is going to be pretty sweet because, I mean, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, is 20% effect resist like the most? Not really, but that 20% might help out against somebody, who doesn't have a good amount of effectiveness. Let's say, you're stacking some effect resist on your characters. This just makes it so that you don't have to worry about doing too much, like, having that much, because you can hit like certain benchmarks you have for yourself. So it might help you out with gearing other things. Now, this is probably also going to be really good on a healer. You just stick it on, your Amont or your Doris or your DJ Basar that you're running with those two. So it's
it's been used on Acades a lot, or Achates, or however you want to say it, in the past a lot, because she doesn't have a whole lot of base healing, and this helped her.
Yeah. So I mean that's a big thing too. So I think that overall that takes a good artifact and just makes it better, and that is pretty cool to me. So that is actually like my next priority artifact to level up.
20 effect resist doesn't sound like that much, but as you say, it can sometimes be the tipping point. And also, like, it's pretty easy to get really high effectiveness. It's not so easy to get high effect resist.
Yeah, and, unless you're trying to like, if you're stacking effect resist, like you're usually sacrificing something else for that effect resist.
Well, that's my point too, though, is that like, so this could very well be the difference between your effect resist outdoing their effectiveness on those heroes.
Yep.
So it's significant.
Oh, 100%. And like I said, I just like it overall. Now the next one, actually, I don't know if I like that one or this one more, because Herberus Tooth, the single target version of Rengar's Drink that was around before that, used to be, you had a 50 to 100% chance to inflict additional damage when a critical hit was made on a single target. And I would use this on Lorena. It really helped boost her damage up. You'd see people run this on Luna for the extra damage. And much like Rengar's Drink, this ignores 70% of the target's defense, like the damage from this ignores 70% of their defense, and it is 30% of the caster's attack. They took out the critical hit requirement. So now when you hit them, this is just going to go on literally every single time. And what they did as well is they're increasing the damage or the scaling from attack by 50%. Now, I believe that is going to be 50% of the 30%, so it'll actually be 45% of attack, because otherwise if they just tacked a whole extra 50% on there, that would be stupid, because that would be 80% of the 80% of their attack in 70% defense penetration damage. And literally the first thing I thought, Gunther. Who's going to take the most? Like, I would have ran an Herberus Tooth on Gunther in a heartbeat if he could have crit, because you just stack 8k attack on Gunther and he's going to just be doing so much damage with this. With them taking the crit chance or the crit hit off of this, literally there's nobody else who's going to use this better than Gunther. And 45% of attack, usually whoever you put this on is going to have a pretty hefty amount of attack. Even at like 4k attack, that's a lot of extra damage just on the top. Like, just, that's pretty much free damage. And it'll be interesting to see when you math it out, like against like some of the other, single target Daydream Joker, Tonfa, Portrait, stuff like that. How does this stack up now? Because if you have it maxed out, that's 100% chance to just have 45% of your attack just hit that target. And I know that for me, it's immediately going off of whoever it's on right now, and is going to go on Gunther 100%.
Yeah, I actually use it and have used it, and I've loved this artifact already on Luna. I guess I'm one of the rare breed that I still use Luna quite a lot in PvP. Be it in Guild Wars, be it in Arena, like, she's good in Tammy's area comps and stuff like that. I do periodically pull out Luna. And I've always loved this artifact on her, to the point where I'd even run it, like if I was using Luna and Wyvern, I'd still have this artifact because I was too lazy to switch out to Joker.
Yeah.
But it's already good, because, as you say, it's kind of like Rengar's Drink. It scales on attack, it ignores some defense when it procs. This is going to make it scary, especially on someone like Luna, or maybe even Gunther,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just imagine like a Gunther coming in and just one-shotting literally whoever you have, because...
Don't need to crit, just gonna kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't need to crit anybody. I'm just going to just dunk on you. And guess what? Your Moonlight Ken isn't going to counter me. Well, one, because he's probably dead, but two, because he didn't crit. And I think that that's one of like the biggest things for me, is just like, this opens up like a ton of extra damage that you can put onto units. And I think that is a really interesting thing that they did with this.
Well, going back to Luna too, a lot of people's issue with Luna is how inconsistent she is with her S1. Sometimes it's like 3, sometimes it's like 10.
Right.
This is going to proc every time if you have her on this. So I think it's going to help reduce that gap of how much the RNG of Luna's S1 affects you.
Yeah, indeed. So the last artifact here is Dingus Orb, and I know it's Dignus Orb, but I will never not call it Dingus Orb, because that's literally what I thought it was at the very beginning, and I thought it was that for a hot minute, and then that is what it will be forever. But this basically, they just added on the next attack deals a 15% extra damage. Now, it grants barrier equivalent to up to 120% of the caster's attack for 2 turns when you use a non-attack skill on a mage. So, I mean, this pretty much just screams Vivian in the first place, because you'll S3, your next turn, you're going to have greater attack, you're going to S2, and it's going to do 15% more damage, which, I mean, it already did quite a bit of damage with the greater attack. This is just going to make her like a massive cleaver.
My question, though, is it going to be better than... Oh, shit. What's the artifact? The one that we're currently using on her. Hold on a second, I'll look it up.
I mean, I'm using Midnight Bloom, because that's what I need for Banshee 11.
That works. Yeah, no, like, there was I forget what it's called. There's an artifact that like was really garbage for a while, and then Vivian came out, and basically it like resets the cooldown
Oh,
Um,
time
Time matter. Yeah.
matter. Yeah.
Is it going to be better than time matter? I wonder.
I think that, just having that extra 15% could just make her S2 just do way more damage and have a better chance at killing things.
Well, I don't know because time matter increases the damage of the second one and the third one. Like if she kills an enemy and then she kills an enemy again, so it'd be interesting to see that total damage. Which one's better?
I mean, I guess like the other thing too, though, is does the 15% take place in that attack, like on every one of them after she
It sure
kills
does.
one?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be like, let's say you get 3 off or whatever. That is going to be, a 45%.
Oh, the 15%. Yeah, you're right. If it works the way
Yeah.
time matter does, that could be interesting.
Right. So, you'd hit, oh, here's the first one is greater attack at 15. The second one's greater attack at 15. The third one's greater attack at 15. So I think that this one pretty much was made for her, and the buff was made pretty much for her. I don't know. I don't have it because I've unfortunately not pulled it ever. So I'm not really gonna use it because I can't. But I think that it'll be interesting to see if anybody does use that on her. I can't think of like really anybody else.
I don't know. You need a mage that, I mean.
Yeah, there's not too many mages
rough.
that don't have a second one, unless you put it on an Oxlots who pushes somebody else and then comes through and is built for attack and then silences everybody.
There you go.
And just does massive amounts of damage.
With the silence.
S2 a normal lot to push him back forward, and then you just silence everybody at an extra 15% damage, and he just wipes everybody, and he silences them successfully because they're all dead.
Destruction set Cleaver Oxlots.
So the last thing in this is the Charlotte remake, and this is a character that has been collecting dust in my inventory for a really, really long time, because like outside of Raid, she just doesn't shine that much. She's got to have really long fights, and the thing I actually like about bringing her to raids is that at the moment her bonuses that she gets, her focus doesn't reset in any of the fights because you haven't left the area, the zone. So after you build up that focus, she has that focus forever in raid, and that's actually pretty cool. But I think that what they're doing with her now is going to make her really, really good. Like on paper and like in my head, I can see her being really strong. Do I think she's going to be Fire Corvus strong? I don't think so, but she's going to be pretty strong. And so basically they're taking the focus away. They're giving her fighting spirit, like a Ravi, Corvus, Ravi. Is there anybody else that uses fighting? Ken uses fighting spirit. So instead of focus, she's going to be getting fighting spirit. And so they basically just reworked every single skill that she had. They just gutted everything and then changed it all back. So the cool thing about her S1, before it used to, like, if the enemy's health was above, she was kind of like a Shadow Rose, where if they were above 50%, she did one thing, and if they were below 50%, she did another thing. Now she just has a 35 to 50% chance to decrease attack for one turn. Now, when the caster is buffed and activates her S1 on her turn, the attack will target all enemies and increase the caster's combat readiness by 20%. So this means that if she is buffed, she's going to hit everybody, aka Purgus style, but this is only on her turn. So whereas Purgus's counterattack hit everybody. So this is on her turn, hits everybody, and increases her combat readiness by 20%. So you can build her real slow and beefy, and when she goes, she's automatically going to boost herself even faster. So she's going to, you can kind of finagle your way around with the speed on her to get her to keep going. Like, so I would actually think maybe a Durando on her wouldn't be too bad, because you're going to be getting hit and you're going to get to go, and then you're just going to get to go faster. So I think that could be kind of cool. Or obviously a Sigurd Scythe, so that as you're getting beat down because you're slow on your turn, you just you hit everybody, gain back all of that delicious life. So I think that that's kind of cool, and it works really well with her second skill, which is Will of Swamp. Now this went before, it was Ground Slam, and this was the AoE that had a chance to stun everybody and increased her combat readiness each time an enemy was stunned. Now it's a passive called Will of Swamp, and what this does is when she is attacked, she is granted attack and defense, granted an attack up and a defense buff, and acquires Fighting Spirit. So she can get up to 20% or a 20 Fighting Spirit whenever she is attacked. Now, when she's attacked on her turn, so when she's counterattacked, the acquired Fighting Spirit is doubled. Now, increased attack and defense can only be triggered once per turn. And the thing here that they didn't really say is how long that lasts. Is it only one turn? I would feel like it would only be one turn, since it can only be triggered once per turn. So what it's basically there to do is make her a little bit beefier, live through that damage, get your Fighting Spirit, and then on your turn you have increased attack. You cleave everybody on your S1 if you use your S1, because you have increased attack and you have increased defense. So actually using a Sigurd Scythe might not be bad, because you'll just get back all of the hit points that you lost from getting beat up for, you know, a hot minute. And then you just kind of go back into that. Now her S3 is changed a bit, and it's kind of like Corvus's S3, and that it doesn't have a cooldown, but it's going to consume 100% of her Fighting Spirit. Now, what this does is it is an AoE with a 75% chance to make the enemy unhealable for 2 turns. But if you hit, it's going to be a critical hit. So this is really cool, because you don't have to really run crit hit chance on her if you're just going for vortex damage. It's kind of like Yuna's S3, where it always crits. So you can, yeah, it really is, because I mean, you kind of want to still put a little bit of crit chance on her, just so that like her S1 is going to be doing some crit, is going to crit. But this helps you, like if you just wanted to go nothing but vortex, right? You could just build like real high hit points to live through whatever is hitting you, high attack, high crit damage, and just rely on vortex to do the damage. Like, yeah, cool, S1, you know, whatever. You're just using that kind of to put the decreased attack on the enemy, so that when you have increased defense from getting hit once, and they have decreased attack, like you're not taking any damage, but you're going to be getting 20 Fighting Spirit each time you're hit. So you can just pretty much, if you're slow enough and they're lapping you, you can just straight up vortex every single time. And if you're just rocking massive amounts of crit damage, massive amounts of attack, like it's going to end up being a situation where, like, you know, again with Fire Corvus, like every time he gets to go, he's just going to spam his S3. And so for her, if you're just doing piles of damage, you're going to come through and you're just going to slaughter everybody. So as long as you build her beefy enough and like with a little bit of speed, but not too much speed, so that she is getting hit, and you have some sort of, you know, maybe like you would run around like maybe a timeless anchor, so she's not getting CC'd, because that would kind of put a kink in that plan. But she's just going to go vortex and then just wipe everything out. It's going to be sweet.
Yeah, I got to tell you, like, unfortunately, I am super unfamiliar with Charlotte. I don't actually have her. I have no awareness of what she even does currently, other than I know people like periodically show me her spinning for a lot of damage. So I don't really understand the full, I guess, scale of how much has changed here. But I will say, like, what I can say is Reddit is already fully divided. Like, there's some people who are like, oh, this is amazing. She might even have a PvP presence and things like that. And others are like, no, she's going to be total garbage. She's not going to be good in PvE anymore, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
my
this
theory,
is
right?
To me, this is a brand new character. Like they have changed enough things about Charlotte that this is a new hero coming out. So
100%.
I really feel like it's gonna take some time for people to just kind of get her, build her, work with her, and see what she can do. But it sounds pretty interesting, actually, just from reading the kit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like one of the things that I always like to remind, you and the listeners at home is if Reddit says something is bad, chances are it's going to be really good, because Reddit is not very good at predicting what's going to be good or bad.
Very true.
So, if Reddit's divided, then I'm already ready to put my hat in the ring and say that this is going to be really good. There's a lot of different builds, but chances are you're just going to build like a tanky like destruction set on her for really high crit damage, and you're just going to get hit just enough to get 100 focus and then just come through and cleave everybody to death. And I think that that's going to be pretty much how that's going to work. The other way you could potentially build it is with maybe like a lifesteal set if you're looking for like sort of sustainability. Maybe make it like a quick lifesteal set, because when you go, if you don't have Vortex up, then you're just going to AoE everyone, and then you're going to get back hit points off of that, and you're going to have that defense up and attack down to help you out in terms of survivability. So I would say like building her like a tanky high crit damage with like maybe lifesteal. Honestly, I wouldn't build her really with counter attack, because unless you're running like, like I said, like a Sigurd Scythe for that sustainability or something along those lines, I really wouldn't build her with a counter attack set, because she doesn't really gain too much off of that. Because the AoE only triggers on her turn. But maybe
just throw out there, Doris heals a lot of HP now.
She absolutely does.
You could sustain Charlotte pretty well with a Doris, I think.
Yeah, you absolutely could. Boom, 50%. Oh, continuous healing. Oh, CR pushed. That would be kind of interesting. But ooh yeah, Amont, Doris, DJ Bassar, and Charlotte.
There you go.
Just the sustain team for one giant threat. But I think that overall this is going to take a character that most people have literally no idea what she even remotely does, and they're going to have to basically relearn like who the character even is.
Yep, it's a new hero. Just treat it like a new hero.
Yeah, pretty much, because like literally everything about her except for her sprite is brand new.
Yeah, like this is like the first Spectre Ginebra buff, where she just does things that are totally different.
Yep, absolutely. So, I'm pretty excited to see what this can bring to the table and to the meta. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, Seaside Bell's still there, so no fire hero can ever compare to with Seaside Bell on the map. And I do think that, like I said before, and like I keep saying, is I think that there's a lot of things in the works for RTA that a lot of people aren't going to even remotely be able to figure. Like, they're not going to know. There's people out there probably right now that are just straight up theory crafting like just these weird like omega crazy teams that are going to just like throw people for a loop, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when it actually gets rewards attached to it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we've got. We've been talking. This is an extra long podcast, even though we only have the two of us. But an
extra long amount of information, I guess.
There was a lot of stuff this week. I mean, you get patch notes and dev notes, and that is just a massive amount of content after kind of a dry week. But any closing statements?
Just guild is still recruiting. I think we've only got like 1 or 2 slots left, though. So if you're challenger and above and you feel like you want to have some fun in Guild Wars and do your attacks every Guild Wars, feel free to hit us up.
Yep, absolutely. But with that, I'm going to sign off and we will catch you. We're going to do this bi-weekly. I think that we can get that knocked out. It'll come out on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, depending on our time. But I want to thank all you guys for listening. If you do like this, like, fave, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff, and share this out because I am fighting against the YouTube algorithm. So the more you guys share this, the more that this gets out there and visibility, and I definitely appreciate all of that. But anyways, guys, I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy, homies. Peace.